Welcome to my podcast on corporate digital responsibility. Corporate digital responsibility outlines a set of responsibilities that any organisation should consider in helping to achieve a better balance of the utilisation of digital technologies for the benefit of all in society. It is a recognition that the organisations driving forward the advancement of technology and those that leverage technology to engage and provide services to the citizen have a responsibility to do so in a manner that is fundamentally leading us towards a positive future. Okay, so welcome to the fourth in the podcast series on corporate digital responsibility. Delighted to be joined by both Christopher and Oliver today, talking about what we've seen over the year and looking forward into next 2020, 2021. Could I ask you each to say hello to listeners? So Oliver, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Oliver Merx, and I'm a digital consultant at a health company in Berlin, a digital health company, and and I work on CDR since 2018, so to say. And I'm founder and moderator of the CDR LinkedIn group.
Fantastic, thank you. Christopher.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Christopher Johnson. I am a consultant, a digital consultant for Atos, based out of London in the UK. And I've been working with Rob actually on the CDR topic since about 2017, so going on for 3 years now.
Great. So if we could kick off, perhaps actually with the work on the CDR LinkedIn group, because I'm very conscious, Oliver, you've brought together a very growing community over the last 12 months, focusing on CDR. So how did that start?
I would like to begin with the question how I got involved with CDR, but very interesting story. And the reason I got involved with CDR was that I was moderating a panel discussion on identity and digital transformation at the so-called Bayreuth Dialogues in 2018. You might don't know them. And during this discussion, I met a cyborg for the very first time, a cyborg. Yeah, you know what a cyborg is, you know the films. And his name is Enno Park. He's more or less known well known here in Germany. And he has implemented a chip, and he's able to hear people even at great distances, for example, and far beyond human hearing. And I was really shocked to have a conversation with such a human being, or is it a human being, or what is it? And in the same discussion, I met Stefan Lorenz Sorgner, who is a leading transhumanist who preached the benefits of digital enhancement for people. And me, as an educated lawyer, I was really irritated because in this discussion, I recognized the limits of our traditional law system and classical regulation. And where does being human in a digital world begin and where does it end? I was really asking me this question. And once clear boundaries between man and machines become blurred, this was my impression in this discussion. And the same goes for the legal system. And it doesn't really work in a highly innovative, fast-changing digital environment. This was my impression. And because of this, I was searching for new alternatives for the classical legal system. And for instance, to answer the question, who's liable when a cyborg makes a mistake or so? Yeah, just very simple questions with very difficult answers. And I found CDR as a subject. And the very first thing I did was I tested this word. It was just a word in the beginning for me. And I tried to find out if it convinced me, the idea of corporate digital responsibility. And then I made a map, a strategic map, and identified that every successful subject needs a LinkedIn group. It's very simple math work. Yeah. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not only moderator of one LinkedIn group, I'm moderator of several LinkedIn groups, because connecting people from different perspectives, from different subjects. So the choice has to be LinkedIn from my perspective. Yeah. The best choice. And this is why I founded this group in 2018, in the end of 2018. I invited the first people in the beginning of 2019. And after that, it grew till today. Mm-hmm.
And I think what we've seen over the last, certainly kind of from the conversations I've had over the last few months, a very active group and a lot of passion
Yes.
around driving change and driving awareness of some of the positive things that can be achieved, but of course kind of being aware of ensuring that people aren't left behind. So what about some of the most interesting things that you've seen over the last kind of 6-9 months, conscious of the pandemic's changed quite a lot for everybody in that time?
Yes, so the pandemic was very important. Health in general got important, and as I told you, I work in a health company. I'm focused on CDR at health. This is my, I would say, my priority. But the most impressive thing for me was the community itself. Just to see that people were searching for other people, that they were interested in exchange, that were interested in break down boundaries and so on, and that would so they do not know competition as soon as they talk about CDR. So they would like to collaborate. This was very great to see. And the LinkedIn group is just one aspect of this community. In fact, the community is much bigger, even in Germany, or especially in Germany. And to see this community grow and to see how happy they are that they found others who could help them in difficult situations and so on. This is for me the major, let's say, impact of the group in 2020.
And Christopher, I mean, I remember one of the things that we saw from the survey that we did back end of 2017 was that people were most open to digital technologies where there was a benefit for health, their health, an opportunity to improve things. So any comments from yourself in terms of what you've seen over that time as well? And I know you wrote an article in terms of the pandemic impact as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Of course, health was a big driver for the citizen when they were asked to what extent they felt comfortable with the online world. I think perhaps if we asked the citizen the same question today, what is important to you? What are you willing to move into the digital world? Then coronavirus might have actually played a substantial cause in that person now saying, well, actually, every transaction I make is with online banking. It's with a contactless payment. All of the entertainment I consume now is through social media and online forms of streaming and the like. So I think we might more and more, as a result of the virus, see society moving to being more comfortable with these technologies. That creates the question, when is corporate digital responsibility going to transcend the LinkedIn groups, the academic forums, the interest groups that we're creating out into the mainstream consciousness? Because as soon as it does that, just like corporate social responsibility did when we started buying free-range eggs, when we started caring about how many air miles we did, just as that changed our behaviors as citizens, that will then mean that companies find this so important, because all of a sudden it's a competitive edge for them. It's going to help them employ the best person because they've got the right employment and automation policy. It's going to help them get more people using their product because they're providing a digitally inclusive service. And when it's picked up by the citizen, I think we might see corporate digital responsibility blowing up in the future. Maybe that could be a 2021 thing. I don't know.
So Oliver, kind of in terms of, we talked before about top-down, bottom-up strategies in terms of raising awareness across academia and corporate world and associations and government. I know one of the bits of research that you've done has been focusing on what's out there from an academic perspective. And there's quite a lot, actually, isn't there, in terms of that universities and higher education facilities are already providing.
But the problem with the universities is they need the contact to the practice. So, and they're searching for the link. And the other thing is that within the university or the academic community, there's a lot of competition. It's a difficult topic. So professors and doctors and so on, they tend to think that they are the only ones who know how to define CDR also, and that makes things a little bit more difficult sometimes. And on the other side, I think if they want to be accepted in practice, they need the cooperation, the collaboration with corporates and with the practice. But I would like to highlight another point. You asked me about the Corona crisis, and one of the interesting aspects regarding CDR is that in the beginning of 2020, everybody who was talking about CDR talked about data privacy, talked about AI, and so on. And within 2020, the wind changed a little bit because people talked about the future of work, for instance, as part of CDR, and workplace topics are CDR topics too. People talked about well-being. So because people at the home office needed a program for well-being or other things. So we found new facets of CDR that are as relevant as the topics from the beginning, or 2018 or 2019. And this made CDR much more richer from my perspective. And Corona helped people to understand that future of work is a very important aspect of CDR because they can grab it. It's tangible for them. They know what it means.
Which I know Christopher will agree with, because obviously I know the focus for you was very much on inclusion and well-being as kind of some of the many kind of aspects of CDR that we touched on originally.
Absolutely. For me, I raised recently in my blog the idea that corporate digital responsibility is also all about supporting and helping the most vulnerable people in our society, whether they be vulnerable from a lack of inclusion in digital technologies, from being most exposed to fake news that could mislead them, etc. There are a number of cases where there's always a chance people might get left behind or taken advantage of, or have their health and well-being infringed by this sort of technology that's coming our way. And to that extent, those elements you've just described, Oliver, really hits those notes. And there's the ones that I think might get the most notice going forward. I'm interested to hear from you though, Rob. Where do you think CDR is going to be going in 2021? Where do you think its next step is? Big question.
Big question indeed. I think the battle that I've seen, and maybe battle isn't quite the right word, is there are significant initiatives with some of the aspects of what we would consider as part of CDR. There is a lot of conversation, as you said, Oliver, and has been for some time, around the data and AI ethics side, digital ethics, maybe encompassing some more. Yes, we've talked about inclusion. We've been more involved in some of the sustainability and environmental side of CDR, and a wave of people passionate around wanting to utilize these technologies to make an impact. And maybe that's the one that we didn't talk about as much 2-3 years ago. We talked about the 18th SDG in terms of whether digital kind of ought to be highlighted in that way. But I think that's the thing that for me is the combination of the pandemic and the focus around, once we get past the pandemic, then we've still got the how do we kind of get the planet right? How do we kind of face the challenges of climate change and things like that? Then using digital to solve some of those big challenges seems to be a kind of strong focus point. Came through very strongly in the conversation that I had with the UN Environment Programme, obviously in terms of the article that I wrote subsequent to that. So I think focus on that, focus on the pandemic itself, and how we move above and beyond. I think for me though, the thing that I'm intrigued by is how do we get this common language? We've seen a massive kind of focus on CDR in Germany and in Switzerland. I would also highlight. But less so in some of the other countries. Across Europe, there are some other terms that kind of emerged in those countries. So I think for me, one of the things that we need to do is find a way of connecting the terminology. Oliver, you're nodding.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's still a lot of verbal confusion around CDR and its meaning. And So we asked ourselves, what are the differences of 2020 and what will come 2021? And so if you look back, we have to say that CDR has become more mature. It's not so exotic anymore. So from here in Germany, as it was maybe the years before, it is publicly more known. But it's still a forerunner subject. This is our impression so far. So we need forerunners and we have to reward the forerunners. And one of the major goals for 2021 will be to make CDR more tangible, to give examples and to reward the CDR pioneers and their projects. This is one of the aspects that we think that it's necessary. And in a nutshell, CDR needs to become more sexy. It sounds a little bit, yeah, it has to be sexy. You have to motivate people to invest in CDR. And as long as it's so academic, it's not that sexy. So we have to find other ways, and we're working on these other ways. And well, let's have a look. We're really interested in what happens 2021, but one of our major goals is to make CDR more sexy.
And I think in the conversations and the work that I've seen you do, a lot of the focus in Germany is on voluntary adoption of CDR. So this is businesses that see the value in wanting to kind of do something different. I mean, clearly Velida was a great example in the conversation, the blog that I published recently. Do you think there comes a time when it can't just be voluntary?
A very good example might be CDR at Health. I call it CDR at Health. Yeah. In 2021, I think we would see some changes. So one of the examples I would like to mention is a paragraph. The paragraph is called 20K SGB 5. It's a paragraph for German insurance companies. The problem with this paragraph is that it's so abstract that nobody knows what has to be done. So to make paragraphs more concrete, CDR might be one of the best tools you can imagine. And I think we will see that we will find in future, we will find more legal framing, and CDR will be, this is my opinion, will be the tool to make to make things more concrete or tangible, to combine legal goals with concrete processes and so on. So I think this will be the future of CDR. A good combination of legal framing and how-to guidance.
And I think it's interesting. One of the things that another conversation I had this week, that there seems to be a strong interest from the legal sector in terms of digital and CDR. Whether we're talking about AI or blockchain or any of these things, they present legal challenges or processes or frameworks that there aren't the answers for, because as you said earlier in the conversation, that they're new. And it's interesting to see, as much as I see the tech sector kind of focusing and very excited in it, that this strong interest from legal as well. Is that something you're seeing broadly across Europe as well?
Well, think about the Brexit. So we talk about different rights systems and more different rights systems. So we need a mutual language, I would say. Mutual language is the right term. And CDR is more international standard. How do you say it? You can standardize it much better than our legal systems. And I think this is one of the opportunities and one of the great advantages of CDR, that you can make it work much better on an international level than our already existing law systems. Think about the privacy shield problem that happened when the German or the European law said that the privacy shield is not working any longer. All the problems we had. So we need alternatives, and CDR is an excellent international alternative. That's my opinion.
And I find it quite interesting. From a legal background at university, I find that topic interesting as well. Of course, it's going into new areas for law to address, and which there are ambiguities. The cyborg and who owns a cyborg being an important question that the law will have to find a very objective answer to. I think the perhaps more interesting and perhaps more impactful area is when policy and politics starts to take hold of this topic, and it becomes a more important element. We even saw at the US presidential election, I think there were certain candidates that put technology at the front of their campaign as being something that was a distinguisher for them, that they were going to drive America into a new digital age. When is it that we start seeing that messaging feed through? And when will doing things right by the digital world be just as important as doing things right by the climate and our environment?
Do you think that there needs to be EU-wide policy change or clear public policy to drive an accelerated adoption of CDR?
I think we need global change, unfortunately. I say unfortunately because I think that will be the most difficult to achieve. But I wrote a blog some time ago about the CEOs of Google, Facebook, the like going in front of MPs and talking to them about recent privacy infringements that had occurred on their platforms. And part of me felt, who is it for these MPs who oversee this population, speaking to these CEOs who have complete and utter control of our entire social world in the online forum? I don't think it's until we can talk to these organizations at that level that we can really cut through. Because yes, perhaps European Google might make a stand on it, but it has to be a bigger thing. And that'll be a level of a globalization of the digital world, which hasn't really been addressed from a policy or legal issue yet. So that'll be quite a standout moment for us.
So it's coming to the end of a difficult 2020, and we've probably got a difficult 2021 to look forward to, but hopefully with some light at the end of the tunnel. A question for both of you, really. So, what would be the top one or two things that you would each like to see happen in the first 6 months of 2021 that help drive CDR forward?
I got a very simple answer to that. I would say everybody should watch more Netflix, because yesterday I saw the Social Media Dilemma, a film on Netflix. And so if you see this film, we do not have any more questions. You know why CDR is necessary. Yeah. If people from all these companies like Facebook, Google, and so on, if they say we need digital ethics, then everybody should understand why we need that. You may say, okay, we have to transfer that, we call it CDR, and why we call it CDR. But this film is my recommendation for everyone who is interested in CDR.
Christopher?
So I'd love to see, it's a similar answer actually, I'd love to see more advocates of CDR. I want to know who the Greta Thunberg of the CDR world is going to be, who's going to be the one that takes it to the corporations and says, this is something that is important to the world. Unfortunately, you say, what would you like to see? What I'm concerned we might see is a bit of another doomsday scenario, something that goes drastically wrong, which makes the world realize that technology is something that we need to take a step back from and understand if we're doing it in the right way. For me, that's potentially what could cause a Greta to come out and say, actually, this is something we need to take control of. So yeah, I'm predicting a dramatic and hopefully positive 2021.
I was going to say, cheery thoughts to finish the conversation with, Christopher.
And Rob, what's your wish? Make a wish.
Make a wish. Make a wish. I think my main wish would be to kind of that the world gets on top of the pandemic to such an extent that we can perhaps return to travelling a little more as we used to do, so that some of these conversations could be face to face, perhaps at some stage later in 2021. I think from a CDR perspective, then my wish is that kind of we do get to see this common language emerging. That Oliver, you and I both know that we've got conversations and people engaged in Poland and Italy and Spain and the US and a number of other countries. So connecting the dots as we've been doing, raising the awareness and seeing some of those other countries begin to expand, and it doesn't actually matter if they call it CDR, as long as it's kind of that aggregation of things to create more positive outcomes that benefit society as a whole, as we've been talking about. That's what I'd like to see.
Sounds great.
Fantastic.
Okay, so that's great. Thank you very much to the both of you. That's the end of our 4th podcast. So hopefully we'll have got a number of people who listened into that and inspired a few more people to get involved on your LinkedIn group that we should kind of give a final plug for. Oliver, always welcome for people to join in that and get visibility of the work that's happening across the world as we continue to promote that. And I should say to all of our listeners, hope you have an excellent Christmas and New Year, and look forward to a more positive 2021 than 2020 has been. Thank you both.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.